Today's video is kindly sponsored by Skillshare. Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to make the last summer piece of this year. Maybe the second to last. Depends on you guys actually. You can go and vote down in the comments or actually write a comment and you're gonna see what you should write a comment about during the video, so stay tuned. We have a really cool video planned for today, which is actually a cute cottagecore inspired linen top. You know what would be amazing if you could do that? Just interact with that like button down there. Give this video a like. I have recently, tried to inform myself about engagement and interacting with videos and whatnot, and the easiest thing that everybody of you guys can do is actually click that like button down there. It's just one simple tap on a button and that would help me tremendously. So if you could do that, I would highly appreciate it. Apart from that, if you haven't already, go follow me on my Instagram. I really love making reels and I'm really active on my stories now as I have some help with me. So I'm not alone anymore and I can actually do stuff that I used to do again, which I didn't have time for after I started YouTube full time. So give me a follow there, I would highly appreciate it as well. And let's just jump right into the video. So for this project, I actually started with my cutout dress that I also have a video for here on YouTube and also the pattern, of course, on Etsy. I'm gonna put a link in the eye right now and also down in the description so you can check that out. It had these cutouts in the waistline and I did not want them for this top. And also it had more parts than I actually wanted for the bodice, so you were just able to see me put the side, front and the front piece together. And I created this half dart because I'm gonna do something like special with the dart as well. I then also took out the cutouts and just elongated it again to like form a complete bodice. And then also due to the sketch that I made before, I wanted to add some ruffles in the front to kind of like mimic a blouse. So I grabbed my mock-up fabric and actually tried out the alterations that I did. Now, I also never really tried out this kind of dart. I just had in mind that I did not want to, sew it all the way through till the point of the dart. I just wanted it to be like kind of open and, I don't know, lay flat or something. Not really sure how it worked, but I just took my like wheelie thingy here to print through the paper until where I have to sew and stitch together. I then marked it with my washable marker and also drew lines that I can just, stitch along. And I ended up really liking this kind of dart. It was something different that I just never really see anywhere, to be honest. So I was like, you know what, this fits really well with the whole cottagecore theme. I'm just gonna do it. I then proceeded to just drape the blouse kind of part onto my already made mock-up. I ended up changing the neckline a tiny bit, like I lowered it actually, because it just didn't look right with the blouse so high, I guess. I don't know. To me, if I look at this, it looks pretty much like my traditional gown, like a Bavarian gown, to be honest. And that's also kind of what I was inspired by because it is September and now would be time for, preparations of the Oktoberfest, which is cancelled. So I don't know, maybe I felt nostalgic or something. And this is what it ended up looking like. If you ask me, it pretty much looks like a dirndl. That's what the traditional dress is called. I ended up wanting the bodice to be lower. I did not want it to end at my waistline, so I just basically lowered the whole thing about like 7 to 10 centimeters, which is quite a lot if you ask me, and altered the pattern accordingly and started with my fashion fabric. But before we get into that, let's talk a bit about our sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community for creatives where millions come together to take the next step in their creative journey. Having my own business also means having the responsibility over literally everything there is to do. I am constantly juggling between my pattern business, the production of my video content, and hunting down new ideas and fabrics for upcoming projects. Staying focused for a long time on one specific topic can be very tricky with this variety of tasks. That's why I was looking into to the classes for productivity on Skillshare. They have numerous classes around art and illustration, design, photography, video, and freelancing, and so much more to explore. The class that helped me organize my working days the best is Productivity for Creatives: Build a System That Brings Out Your Best by Thomas Frank, a YouTuber, author, and entrepreneur. He gives valuable insights on how to plan out your work week while staying focused and being the most productive without starting numerous tasks and switching between them every minute. Explore new skills, deepen existing passions, and get lost in creativity. Skillshare is curated specifically for learning, meaning there are no ads and they're launching new premium classes all the time. So you can stay focused and follow wherever your creativity leads you. So check out the link down in the description below and in the pinned comment, because the first 1,000 to click the link down below will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare Premium. Thank you so much for Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. And as I just mentioned before, I went ahead and altered the pattern, and this is what it ended up looking like. So this is also what you would end up getting if you follow the link down in the description to my Etsy store. You do not have to cut anything away. I'm saying that because there are some like blind spots that the printer won't print on the paper, which is about like 5 millimeters, something like that. So not too big of a deal, but this is very individual, as in every printer, you know, works kind of a different way. But if you're unsure of how the pattern like continues from one page to the other, you can always refer to the actual PDF on your computer and then draw in the lines that are missing. Also keep in mind that I am doing my best to put all the valuable information that you need in the middle of the page, so you do not have any problems with the pattern. Now I want you to pay attention to the front pattern piece, which is this weird pattern piece with this round cutout. This is what it ended up looking like, and it might not be clear what you need to do, which is why I put an extra amount of work into showing you how to put the front piece together. Essentially, it's just an open dart, you know, nothing too difficult, but I do understand if you've never done anything like this before, which neither have I, that it might be a bit confusing, which is why we're just gonna walk through this together. Now after like putting all the notches in and cutting out all of my pattern pieces, I actually went ahead and marked the 2 points that are marked in the pattern piece, in the front pattern piece. They're called lower bust points. These are the points that need to match once we put the dart in. That's why I just put, you know, some pins in for now. I'm continuing with putting the interfacing onto my pattern pieces that need it, which is just the button tape pieces and also the shoulder strap pieces, which are either structural pieces like the button tape or just pieces that I do not want to, you know, either wrinkle up, or I want them to have a bit more strength like the shoulder strap. So this is what I recommend you do too if you follow this pattern, or generally if you have a similar pattern and it's not marked, I would always put interfacing, especially on the button tape, which is what you would usually also do in fashion design. To prepare for further sewing, I just iron all the pieces that I put interfacing on in half, so the button tape and the shoulder strap pieces. Moving on to the front piece. Now we already put the pins in the lower bust points, and we're going to translate this position to the other side as well, so to the second pattern piece, which you can just turn around and put pins in just like this. And also remove the pins that you just put in before, and also just, you know, stick them down so that both sides have a pin in, I guess. When removing one of the layers of the fabric, you end up having one pin on each pattern piece respectively. I would advise you to be, you know, a little extra portion of careful, otherwise you're going to end up shooting the pin out just like you just saw me do. Anyways, not a big deal, I just put them back in. The next step that you should be doing right now is actually overlock the open dart, so the round portion of the front pattern pieces. I totally forgot that. I am seeing my mistake after I closed the dart, which is, you know, one step too late because you're not going to have enough space to actually, you know, nicely overlock the dart. That's why you should do that right now before continuing. What you see me do right here is actually fold the pieces right sides together so that the pins that we used to mark the lower bust point previously match right up. So I'm putting one pin like down both points so they meet, and actually pinning it flat, and then continue pinning the open darts on both sides together, preparing it for stitching. And I'm stitching at 1 centimeter and then going straight to that lower bust point that I marked before. And here you can see that I overlock the piece actually afterwards. As I said, do it before, it's way easier. Now I'm ironing the seam allowance open just to the point where I stopped stitching, which is the lower bust point, just until there. I don't want the nice folds that the fabric naturally does because of the seam to, you know, be flat ironed. I want it to fold how it just would naturally fold with the seam. And to strengthen that portion a bit better, I decided to put a bar tag right at the lower bust point, just a horizontal bar tag. Next up is the button tape in the center front. So we already prepared the button tape pattern pieces by folding them in half and iron them flat, but we also need to prepare them a bit further, which is just ironing the seam allowance of one side into the piece itself as well on both of the pattern pieces. And this is what it should end up looking like. Now I'm grabbing my front pattern pieces because that's where the button tapes get attached to. And just to show you something a bit different, I guess, I'm actually putting the button tape onto the right side of my front pattern piece. You can do either wrong or right side. Usually I'm showing you wrong side, but maybe it would be educational for you to also see that you can do it either sides. I guess it's personal preference. But whatever method you choose, with both ways you have to then iron the seam allowance into the button tape to prepare for, you know, top stitching the button tape closed on top of it. And now what you can see here on screen is actually the wrong side where the button tape folds over top, and I'm pinning the fold just over top of the stitches that I just did to hide them essentially. I turn it over because you always want to stitch from the right side, from, you know, the outer side that will be visible, which is also why I prefer actually the other way that I usually show you. Because I just feel like I have more control if the open folded side is on the outer side of the piece, and I can guide it completely safe without having to, you know, worry about the underside not catching it correctly and stuff like that. But you do whatever you prefer. I just wanted to show you that either way is fine. Next up, I'm taking my front and back pieces and close the side seams by putting right sides together and stitching at 1 centimeter. I also overlock this seam after I'm done stitching together and iron the seam allowance towards the back piece. Next up are the sleeves, and you actually make them the exactly same way as I already showed you in my cutout dress and also in my puff dress Danielle. So if you haven't watched those two videos already, I highly recommend. I give a very detailed tutorial on how to puzzle the sleeves together. The only difference to those sleeves is that I added a small elastic on the hem to create a ruffle. That's why you saw me actually hem the sleeves in the very beginning, so I have, you know, a flat surface to work with. But that's the only difference. There is a line drawn into the pattern that says sew elastic in here, and you just need to cut your elastic down to size, which is written on the pattern, and then just stretch the elastic for the whole length of the hem of the sleeve and just stitch it there. And that's already all you have to do. Now this is the point where it differs to what I already linked for you guys. You just need to sew your elastic while stretching it to the length of your sleeve and then just top stitching it down at 3 centimeters. That's actually the line that I was talking about before. Then I continued to close the sleeve side seam, and the rest is exactly the same as I already showed you in the other videos that I mentioned previously. And these are the sleeves. This is what they should end up looking like. Both of them are done now, and I'm actually taking my front piece, which is, you know, already back and front pieces combined, and I'm taking my sleeves and pinning them onto the bodice right where the notches are in front and back pieces. And the sleeves get attached at 1 centimeter. Now the top already looks like a top. This is my favorite stage of any sewing of any garment because you can already see the result. But there's still this fake blouse piece, which is this triangular shaped pattern piece, which you need to attach. I went ahead and actually folded the upper corner 5 millimeters twice, just as I hemmed previously, and then also stitched the elastic onto this seam. So I stitched pretty closely to the edge of the neckline, I guess. I then also ironed the folds like nicely into place, not, you know, with a lot of pressure, so that they're still folds, but I made sure that they all face upwards, you know, the right direction, so that the elastic won't be visible. I then take my bodice and pin the fake blouse right sides together with the front neckline. I also went ahead and overlocked the piece. You can either do that after you put the elastic in or before. I would recommend doing it before because it's much easier. You're gonna find that the part that is not gathered actually is much bigger than the length of where it should end up being, because you're gonna pin it from the straps of the shoulder to where the button tape starts. And that's not enough for the whole piece to flat fit onto this. So what I did was actually make some manual folds and just made the pattern piece fit. So this sounds probably a bit counterproductive, but this is essentially just an aesthetic detail, nothing that you need for this pattern to work. And it also covers the boob area a bit more. That's why the elastic has to sit on top so that it doesn't just open up. I am stitching the fake blouse to the front piece, right sides together, and stop right at the corner where the fake blouse meets the shoulder strap. I then start a new stitch and actually top stitch the seam allowance of the fake blouse to the shoulder strap, and then just continue top stitching from the front to the back of the piece. This keeps the blouse in place and it looks really nice from the outside. So as you can see right here, I am just pinning the right side to the wrong side of the strap, so it ends up looking like this, and I am top stitching right next to the fold of the shoulder strap so that the blouse stays in place. I then proceed to overlock the seam allowance of my neckline. So I am tucking away all of my, the pieces that I attached previously to my top, so the sleeves and also the fake blouse and stuff like that. I am folding it under, so it's like on the underside that you can't really see right now, so that I have access to the neckline, and I just overlock everything in one go. I then folded the seam allowance 1 centimeter down and top stitched from the right side of my blouse so that everything is neat and tidy. I do have to admit that this was kind of awkward doing it like this, but I did not know any other way. I probably should have added a facing or something like this to make it less awkward. But let me know down in the comments if you have any, suggestion or idea of how I would have been able to do this easier. I don't know, this was totally awkward for me. But anyways, I managed somehow to do it really nicely, and I was able to continue with my button tape. Now I had the button positions already drawn into my pattern, so I was just able to transfer the placements onto my pattern piece And now I was able to use my buttonhole maker again, which is super, super cool. So it's this really, really crazy contraption that I can just use as a foot for my machine. As you guys know, I'm working with an industrial machine which can only do back and forth. It can't do anything else that your normal ordinary machines might be able to do. So I have to use this amazing thing, and it just, you know, it's amazing to me every time that I watch it. So I was able to do 4 buttons just like that. And the topic of why I'm using an industrial machine, if it only has, you know, back and forth stitching, like why would you only want that? I'm using it because it can do those stitches extremely well. I've had my fair share of experience with domestic machines, and I just don't like them, to be honest. I never used any of the stitches they offer, like the decorative stitches and I don't know what. So I always had my overlock machine. I never used the overlock stitch on my domestic machines. So I just decided to go with a professional machine, and I appreciate it very much, and I would never go back to a domestic machine. But anyways, that topic aside, the last step is to put the buttons onto the other side of your button tape. I am using synthetic thread. That's why I'm able to melt the ends of my thread on my wrong side of my blouse so that they won't open up. So check before you do anything like that if you can actually do this. If you have a natural fibered thread, you're obviously not going to be able to melt anything. You're just going to burn it. And just in general, be careful if you work with fire, just as a disclaimer. But this is what it ended up looking like. It worked perfectly fine with the buttonholes that I made, and I really, really like the result. That's it already for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. It was so much fun to sew this, and actually it was pretty easy. So if you're a beginner or a intermediate as well, you can give this pattern a go. I would highly recommend it. It was a one-day job, to be honest, so I bet you're gonna have a good time sewing this as well, and I really, really like the result. You're gonna see it in just a second. It looks so dreamy and fits perfectly into fall season, which has already started here where I live, which is why I'm going to transition into fall wear, clothing, stuff like jackets and coats and leather jackets and raincoats and stuff like that, which is so exciting. I'm really, really excited to share stuff like this with you guys. I am already fashion researching on all of these topics, and I have so many things planned and up my sleeve, and I can't wait to share these with you guys. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Link is down below. It's just a small little button that you would help me with tremendously as well. And make sure to also ring the bell so you get notified anytime that I post. I post on Sundays, so you can keep an eye out for that. If you haven't already, check out my other videos. I am doing loads of fashion videos and sewing tutorials, and I also teach you pattern making, which is something that I do not see that often on YouTube. That is what I really enjoy doing as well, so go ahead and check that out. Also follow me on my socials. Link will be down in the description below. The handle is the same here as on YouTube, so go ahead and follow me there. And that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching again, and I'm gonna see you next Sunday. Bye guys!